This is Michael Ogechi, Abby with Enterprise Express Tax Services. Today we're going to talk about the Schedule C, and specifically what I'm doing is talking about the link or the connection between the 1099 and your Schedule C. Basically, you use the Schedule C to account for any income that you've earned that's not a W-2, for instance. So let's say you work with a company and they did not pay you with a W-2, but instead decided to pay you with a 1099. Um, that's what you're going to use your Schedule C to account for that income. Um, I'll give an example. You drive an Uber or a Lyft, all right? And at the end of the tax year, they issue you with a 1099. Well, in those cases, they issue you with several 1099s. They give you a 1099K, a 1099 NEC, and they also give you a summary as well, all right? So the only way you can account for that income on your taxes is to use a Schedule C, and you can incorporate it into your Form 1040 as well. Okay. Now, here's why the Schedule C is extremely important. Um, Even though taxes were not withheld at the source, all right, you are able to deduct a plethora of business expenses by using the Schedule C. And I'll give you an example of some of those. All right. So that's one of the advantages. Also, when you use a Schedule C, it accounts for your self-employed taxes as well. So in some ways, you're also, by filing with the Schedule C, you are making sure that you're not evading self-employed taxes. Okay. And you see that on your Form 1040, if you look for where it says SE taxes, you will see that self-employed taxes have been assessed by using the Schedule C. Here's an example of some of the things that you can write off on the Schedule C, and there's quite a lot. Advertising, if you had to do any advertising, that expense, a portion of that expense can be written off. If you had utilities, phone bills, electricity to do specifically to do with the business, that can be written off. If you had to use a portion in your home, all right, if you had to use a portion in your home, say like an office in your home as part of your business activity, up to 300 square foot can potentially be written off as a business expense. Mileage, if you had to use your car to go back and forth with particular regards to that business, then that mileage expense, and it's in cents per mile. That's what the IRS allows, can be written off, and that's a biggie one. That can be quite a big one, especially for those who are gig drivers, Instacart, Uber or Lyft, because they do a lot of business mileage. Um, and so that's the link between the 1099s and the Schedule Cs. In a prior video I talked about the different types of 1099s, the 1099 NEC, the 1099 miscellaneous, and I think one or two other 1099s that are not specifically related to say an independent contractor or a self-employed person. All right, but these two types of 1099s, especially the NEC, are what you'll typically need to use the Schedule C to incorporate that income. The other types of 1099s are more related to income that comes from, let's say you take out money from your 401k retirement. You're probably going to be issued with a 1099-R. Okay. And then there's a new 1099 that came out recently, but that's more related to finance income, stocks, cryptocurrency, bitcoins. It's called a 1099-DA. All right. So that's different, excuse me, from the types of 1099 that you would use your Schedule C for. But this is extremely important. You definitely need to know what the Schedule C is used for. What I would always advise people to do is go onto the IRS website, download a Schedule C form, and if you go through it, it will give you an idea of the types of expenses that you can write off for your business. And that way you're more educated in what is a deductible business expense and probably what isn't. I think you might be surprised to see how broad the IRS allows for deductible business expenses. Again, the key thing here is to make sure that you keep good records of your business expenses. Just make sure that you keep adequate records. And one good way to do this is to have one debit card or one credit card that you use for all your expenses. And that way you can reconcile that at the end of the year by just printing out the statement and going over it. Or if you're doing it yourself, fine, you can use that same statement. If you're not doing your taxes yourself, you can furnish that statement to your tax preparer or your CPA, and they can use that to deduct your deductible business expenses. One other good thing, QuickBooks has features, and there's some other software companies these days that have the same feature, where you can share your QuickBooks software, your business inputs. You can share it with your CPA. And so on a real-time basis, meaning on a day-to-day basis, your CPA or your tax preparer can access that software. And you'll be the one giving them that access, and they can see what's going on with your accounts. And it becomes a lot easier to reconcile those expenses on a month-to-month, quarterly basis, and even a yearly basis as well. Okay, so we're just talking about the importance of the Schedule C, the link or the connection between 1099s and the different types of 1099s that can be used with the Schedule C as well. Before I forget, if you have an LLC, uh, and by this I mean a single member LLC, then whatever income and expenses that you have through that LLC are also going to pass through the Schedule C form. So as you can see, the Schedule C encompasses a lot. It's a very important form that's added to your 1040. And again, one of the advantages is that when you include the Schedule C with your 1040, it does have the potential of reducing your taxable income. However, also be aware that there is the possibility that you'll also pay more because you have to take into account that self-employment taxes are going to be included, especially if you made a lot of money as an independent contractor or as a self-employed business person. So you need to take that into account. Once again, my name is Michael Ogechi Abbey with Enterprise Express Tax Service, talking about the Schedule C and 1099s for the 2026 tax filing year. Bye.